Welcome to Hard on the 80's, where three old friends get together and watch the movies that warped a generation.
So, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, man. So
but
we
before
should...
we begin, I didn't know that there was a dress code. No one told me it was match tank top day. Yeah.
Nobody told you it was tank top day.
Did you not turn on the news? It is. We live in Barbie land now, and pink mesh tank tops is the uniform for acceptance.
We're going to see Barbie tomorrow, so I'm excited.
Nice.
To see. I heard it's been getting great reviews.
Was that a spoiler? Yes, there's a lot of pink in the movie. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I should have said spoiler alert before I said that. I have a lot to say about Barbie. Maybe we'll do that for a future episode. But for today, we're talking about Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is kind of the anti-Barbie in some ways. But it is, I feel like we should preface this by saying this book was written about Claremont High, which is the school that is 3 miles from where we went to high school. So this is this landscape hit very close to home at times. And I think because they are, of any of the movies that we've talked about, this is the closest to our actual experience, as well as being a movie that is more intentionally about realistic experiences than, over the top humor.
Right.
I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, Mr. Han taught at our school. I mean, he wasn't Mr. Han. I'm forgetting what his name was, but he taught, and he would say things like, "This is my time," and or our, that stuff. I didn't have him as an instructor, but that would have been the school. We would have gone to Claremont if our school hadn't been built. I mean, that's where people went before that.
So what's this movie about?
Very real.
It's like a slice of life of high school dealing with a group of kids that are learning about sex, relationships, betrayal, friendship, and a lot of I think really realistic teen angsty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly not sugar-coated. I mean, the complaint that this is like a porno, it's like, oh, it's a very uncomfortable view of teen sex and virginity and all the reality of that. I mean, it definitely scarred me then, and it scarred me a little bit now.
I wouldn't say that I had any scars, but I was there were a couple of moments that I'm sure as we sequence through this where it was just so apparent to me as young teenage girls what we did not know about sex. Like it was like we were just like, and we were so ignorant, like what an actual blowjob was, right? And whether or not you actually enjoyed it. It was very crazy. I remember watching it going, ooh, yeah. I remember like, I think it felt good. Right?
Yeah, there's a few really well done insights into the suffering of the adolescent female.
Yes.
Well, let's start at the beginning. And so it starts off with the montage with the Go-Go's. We got the beat and the mall scenes. I'm just like, this is starting as if it is like Disneyland celebration, the best thing ever. It's just fun.
And I wrote down opening music, awesome. The Go-Go's, Jim ?
Oh, there's no question mark. It's Jim ! Motherfucker. I was like, yes.
I know.
DoorDash, jeans, video games. Like it was
like
everything
them walking handed with their hands in each other's pockets. I was like, that was such an 80s thing, right?
So good. In the DoorDash jeans. I just was if the movie was just like 82 minutes of that, I would have been left much happier. It's a great movie, but it's a lot to take sometimes.
If this was just a music video of clips like that, that would have been much more pleasant. I would have watched it twice.
I do have to say, because remember when we started this series and we were talking, and I was like, okay, so much of these movies were not geared towards me, and I don't really remember watching Fast Times at Ridgemont High in its entirety. I think I got most of my exposure of this movie through just sort of pop culture clips of through time. I don't think that I ever
at some point.
I don't think I ever sat down from start to finish and watched this movie. And I was kind of like, oh wow, this movie is like yeah, I remember that. The mall and
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was great.
It's legit. I mean, so it's Cameron Crowe did this movie, right? And who went also wrote it, didn't he? So I think he went
Yeah.
underground and went to high school, this high school that was next to us, and really tried to write a story about what's really happening as opposed to the kind of John Hughes fantasy worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got the after the montage, we get a peek at the restaurant where they're wearing the obnoxious uniforms, all the cute girls who are looking for boys who are coming into their restaurant.
And it's so great, just all the mall jobs.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
good, you know, like there's the movie theater and this.
Did you guys work in the mall? Did anybody work I had a mall job. I only worked in the mall through high school. So I started.
What mall jobs?
Okay, so unfortunately, like I think they even made a reference about this in the movie where like all the kids, they had the cool kids working in the music store, like Sam Goody and stuff. My first job at the mall was at the fabric shop. I worked in House of Fabrics. Yeah, I was not cool.
That's not
I'm
cool.
guessing in the hierarchy that is low.
That's lower than hot dog on a stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friends were working at the music store, or they worked at the ice cream store, or even like, you know, the food court, but I was at the fucking fabric shop with the old
so when
lady.
the hot guys came into the fabric store, what did you say to like flirt?
As a matter of fact, whenever anybody that I knew walked by, I would do my best to like hide.
Fortunately, you had mounds of fabric to hide.
Yeah, take about a yard and a half to hide behind.
However, I gave some life skills because I still sew today. As a matter of fact, when I first met my boyfriend, I made our Christmas stockings, and he's like, "Wow, I can't believe you know how to sew." I'm like, "Yeah,
Nice.
Wow,
I know how to sew."
So it was a long con. It just took like 40 years to like pay off the 30 years to pay off.
But so it was there, and then I went on to work at what we knew as kids being the Broadway, which then became Macy's. So I worked in the Broadway. And
Sweet.
there were like a couple of other ones I can't even remember. I think they were still just retail places that I did, but I had a mall job. Yeah.
Wow.
All through high school. So
And like a full-on like 100-store mall, like
oh yeah, it was called the Inland. We had two malls growing up. It was the Inland Empire Mall, and it was massive, you know, which is super funny because I think that made me think about the fact that there's not a lot of indoor malls anymore. Do you guys see that?
No.
Unless you go into like middle
Yeah.
America is where the malls are all covered. But yeah, it was very interesting.
So I remember right out of college, or maybe it was I think it was right out of college. I remember going store to store in the mall with my resume in hand with a college degree and being so afraid that I didn't go into, I would stop at the front door of every single one. And I went home and I was like, I think I have a problem. And that's when I went to see a therapist and got prescribed anti-anxiety medication, which I was then on for 10 years. But that was the turning point. It was like, how come with a college degree, I'm embarrassed and so anxious about asking for a job at Sam Goody? You know, like,
oh my gosh.
Babes, I wish I would have known you back then, because I would have like just touched you on the shoulder and looked you deeply in the eyes and would have been like, run. None of these jobs are worth it. They're not worth you getting anxious over.
A couple years later, hopped up on Prozac. I did get a winter gig at BR, Banana Republic.
Wow.
So I do have some experience with the mall world of like where you have to, you know, go into a place, show your bag so they show that you're not stealing things. And yeah.
Use a ruler to fold a pair of jeans.
Oh my gosh. So I one of my scarring experiences at BR is having the manager walk by and go, "Great, you're doing great. Before we close up, can you fold all these jeans?" And I looked at her holding the folding board and I said, I just did. And there's this pause and they're like, "Okay, John, you're on greeter duty." Which actually is my favorite job I've ever had. I would like to be a greeter for that is what I was born to be a greeter. That's it.
Hey, not everyone's folder potential. That's okay. You know, there's a certain track. You weren't on that track. That's okay. Someone's got to
So
dig ditches.
funny.
Someone's got to greet people. Hey, it's all right.
Somebody's
I,
gonna
s-
hug,
I
hug
still
people.
I still make my purchasing decisions based on what don't I have to fold and iron. My t-shirt drawer is all super soft t-shirts that I can just throw with a wad in my t-shirt drawer.
I don't know if that is the
Oh,
saddest thing or the most impressive thing I've heard. That's
okay, I have to
a
stop and
real
say
mixed bag.
I miss these so much. My jaw hurts already. Like I'm just cracking out. Like Okay, so yeah,
Okay.
so the fashion in the opening scene is amazing. The mall jobs, it like literally just threw me back in history. And I think, don't we open up with a conversation between the two young girls, right? Isn't that how it kind of starts?
About
Yeah,
about
is that
the
when she
when
says the most horrific line of the movie, which is the "What are you waiting for? You're 15 to have
that
sex."
oh yeah.
She
Well,
says,
when
"I
the
did
when
it when
the
I was 13." And I was like, "Oh God,"
Oh,
thinking about my 14-year-old son being like, "What? That's insane."
well, but
like it's horrible.
it is a lot easier to digest when you realize that she loses it with the 26-year-old guy from the speaker
Oh
store, from the
my
Oh,
car stereo
jeez.
gosh.
store.
Right.
Oh,
So this
Uh,
guy walks in, right? He's handsome by, the if you like them all tall and good looking like that, gross,
gross. Yeah.
Remember me, I'm into the nerds. I like the kid who worked at the movie theater. That
yes.
kid
That's
was
right.
cute to me.
He probably went into the fabric store. Probably got mad fabric.
He probably did. And then then when they go out on that date, right? He picks her up and he asks her, "Are you sure you're
19.
18, 19?" And she's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." And I'm just looking at this
Ugh.
girl's face and I'm like, she has such a baby face. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what would make you think that she's 19,
And I thought she acted so well though, because like her little like the way she would say yes. I mean, yeah, it looked like a child, her little
Right.
nervousness. Yeah, and so let's go straight to that date. So he says, can I take you to the point, right? As he says, or I think it's something like that. And so
Yeah.
and what is the point? It is a dugout of like a high school baseball
So
field.
gross.
And so this is the part of the movie that I remember that when I read the book and I remember this movie, and this was insightful to me as someone who has not experienced sexual assault. But when she's having sex, they show footage of what she is seeing, of like a light in the
Ugh.
dugout and the graffiti. So the sex scene is what she's seeing, this graffiti on the ceiling as she is having this very unpleasant, first time experience. And I was just like, oh, this is probably the most realistic and most painful sex scene. It was hard.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because I asked a question of I was going to ask you guys, did you guys have places like this? There were known places in my where I grew up in my high school where that is where you took your girlfriend or your date to have sex. I unfortunately never saw any of those places because remember I worked in the fabric store. No one was asking me out.
That's not no one cruises there for their action. We had places like that I knew that people would go and make out, but
Yeah.
and occasionally I would hear about somebody that there was a butt cheek against the window, but I think sex was not considered that normal. I know that on my ASB ball night, I took my date to the parking lot of my church, and and I did get a hand job to completion, so it is still part of my spank bank. Yeah, she kept her gloves on, like the silky gloves from a formal date. Is this too much information? Is it back to the movie?
No,
Yes.
no,
Sorry.
that made it a little bit less creepy that you were in the church parking lot. Still some interesting points there. But,
I can't even breathe right now. Crazy. That's great. You had a silk glove hand job.
Oh man, I did
think
not
satin, but yes,
it's coming back to me so vivid right now, and I'm not going to say the woman's name because she was a girl at the time, but she was all woman. I will say that she was on the wrestling team at the time, which probably will make Jim know who it was. But all right,
I do know.
So yeah, so that scene was extremely uncomfortable. It did actually kind of, I mean, I definitely was older. I was 16, I think, which is relatively normal. Later, like about to turn 17 when I lost my virginity, and I did it in a house. It was it wasn't like some crazy scene, but I do remember that uncomfortable feeling of, I don't know what this is supposed to feel like. And this person is like totally enjoying this. And I remember just kind of zoning out. Like I think kind of what she did. And I was kind of like, wow, that's kind of what it's like for a lot of us, at least probably back then. I mean, girls are so experienced now, and they have so much information. They're probably, making their perfect time when they're going to lose their virginity these days. But yeah, it was really uncomfortable. I was like, oh, I just felt for her. I was like, oh God, I feel for her.
Well, and her best friend is so peer pressuring, in the direction of course this is going to be good. Of course this is good. Everyone's doing it. Why aren't you doing it? So, and yeah, so she likes him very much, and but he does not call.
He loses interest quickly. I think he sends flowers.
But he sends flowers though. So I mean, all things considered, at least she got the approval. She got like a,
which also
a
doesn't
Yelp
seem like
review
a
of 24 flower Yelp review.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem like what a 26-year-old would do. It seems like something a 76-year-old would do, would send flowers after intercourse. But still, but it's that scene, the sort of ickiness of that dugout scene, the 4 seconds of foreplay, the graffiti, that it's dirty. It's like, it's what makes this movie not a 80s teen comedy, Benny Hill. Like, it's not fun. It's icky. It's a little icky, and it's what makes it a good movie, I guess, is because that's not like, man, look how much fun they're having. It's like, no, everything about that's fun. And there's tons of consequences to the sex in this movie.
It was very real, and like you said, tons of consequences to the sex that they were having. Not so much necessarily, I mean, other than she didn't want her parents to know, and tells her older brother to get rid of those flowers, which I thought was really interesting. Because honestly, if that was my older brother, he would have been like, oh fuck, why'd you get these flowers? No, guys can't even call my house. My older brother would be like, who is this? You're calling for who? She doesn't live here.
Yeah.
It's like, don't call her again.
Oh my God.
He was so
that's good.
overprotective.
Well, so the brother played by Judge Reinhold is an interesting character, because he has these some moments of being like super cool brother, and some moments where he is clearly unhinged with anger management struggles.
Yeah.
He starts the movie as the cool, as got his life figured out, everything is perfect, which is such a great portrayal of, he's got everything going on because he is managing a burger joint.
That's right.
Right. He's got the car. He knows his path, right? He's just, it's like clear. It's crystal clear.
He's about to be a senior. His car's almost paid off.
Yeah.
He's like living the dream. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
I didn't watching I found myself rooting for him, so to watch his life crumble was a bummer.
I didn't root for him. I just didn't believe it. I mean, wasn't he old? He looked like he was in his 30s when he was playing her sister. I don't know how old he was when he made that, but he looked much older than everyone else in the movie.
Managing the burger barn or whatever will age a man. I wonder how old he was during.
So he was friends with Nicolas Cage. It was one of his buddies in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, the cast is just filled with everybody who became anybody.
Oh my God, Eric Stoltz. Oh, Dreamer. Woo.
Yeah.
It was because of him that till today, if I see a redhead guy, I'm like, ooh, yummy.
Wow.
So let's talk about Eric Stoltz and the Surfer Crew, which includes the what became the focus of this movie for most kids. Was Spicoli, Jeff Spicoli, Sean Penn in the breakout role of A Generation.
He just kills it.
Why don't you get a job, Spicoli? What for? You need money. All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
He's so good. I just was
Plain-
watching clips of just Spicoli clips today.
I just thought it was just super interesting that like they thought it was fine to go everywhere with no shirt on. Is that what was that the Southern California experience? Like you guys walk into a restaurant, take your shirt off.
There was an exaggeration to Spicoli, but there was also there was a Lebowski like philosophical genius to his being above the rules and above the laws and just like oblivious to the point of like poetry, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no, it is. It's Spicoli walked so Lebowski could run.
yeah.
It's totally it's like he's just so he's so good in it, and it totally I mean, we didn't know guys that were exactly like that. Obviously, that's a little bit over the top, but there were certainly
There were
surfer
some
dudes
close
like
ones.
that were
There was-
just, you know, stoned for school and surf everything. You know, and the same
heavily
guys that
lingo
couldn't get
too.
oh yeah, the super like almost incomprehensible, but couldn't get to class on time ever, but could get up at 6 a.m. to surf. You know, like just because waves were good. I mean, it's just those are the most interesting guys. And some of them I've met later on in life, and they did not change. They are that dude. They still reek of weed and surf every day, and like they kind of just found their groove at 11 and stuck with it. So
Yeah,
I guess my hat's
there must
off
have
to
been
it.
something very liberating about that in terms of like you guys watching it as young guys is just this guy who's just kind of floating through high school, you know, especially his last years. I don't know. Spicoli is interesting to me because I'm like, yeah, he's kind of funny, but I don't get it the way that I think you guys get it.
Well,
I was just kind of like, all right,
I mean,
he's a little surfer guy.
He's surfer guy. He's the bumbling idiot. But there's things that I appreciated more upon, you know, repeat viewings as an older person. Like the scene. There's a scene. We'll skip it forward a little bit when Mr. Hand asks Spicoli a question. He says, "What? Like, I think, why can't you get here on time?" And he thinks for a second. And he says, "I don't know."
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I wanted to like applaud, like what courage it takes to answer a question. He didn't try to lie. He didn't make an excuse. He genuinely didn't know until he said, "I don't know." Now, Mr. Hand makes an example of him. He puts it on the board. He's trying to say, "Look how stupid you are because you don't know the answer." But I was like, dude, that's brave. I mean, we need more role models who say like, you know what? I don't know the answer here. I thought it was awesome.
Well, and it was so interesting to me because I totally had a couple of teachers in high school that were like Mr. Hand, just kind of self-righteous and smug and trying to make you feel small because you don't know the answer, you know. That I remember that shit used to irk me, you know. It's just like, dude, that's why I'm here, you know. Like teach me, stop making me like look stupid, you know, like yeah. It was
I had I ended up taking a music class in junior high, and I had never taken music before, and we took this test, and it was like about music notes and stuff, which I had never learned, which is why I was in this class. And so he went around, and then he announced everybody's score, and he walked up to me, and I was like a minus student, like I had very good grades. He walked up to me and he said, "Jim, how long have you been in this country?" And I was like, my whole life. Like, and he's like, "You got a like 22 out of 100 on this music test," like in front of everyone, and just to belittle me. And I just was like, "What the? Of course, yeah." Just like if you gave me a test on Greek, I would have done poorly too. I don't know Greek, which is why I'm in the intro to music class, dude.
Exactly.
Like, and regardless, they ended up being actually misscored by his TA, and I actually had done better than that. But
oh my
beside
God.
the point, he chose to totally belittle me. But anyway, he was a terrible.
So do you remember his name? Because I can picture him in my.
Mr. Campiglia.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm dysregulated right now. As soon as you started telling, I'm like, these memories flooded in. He was horrible.
He made a kid that couldn't read well read in front of the class. He made kids hold a music stand over their head.
I just didn't. I don't understand that way of teaching, that they thought that was like the best way to get results out of kids who were struggling. I always had a really hard time with in English. Not that I had like dyslexia, but there were certain words, you know, our like I was like always screwing them up. And I had this,
I'm not, just the way you say that kills me. Our. Like, all right, was this
It was by pirates.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I also failed intro to piratery, but that's a different story.
You know, like it just fucked me up every time. And I had this one teacher, same thing, and she was just like, this just means you're unteachable. And I'm like, that's the worst thing that you could say to somebody. Like
an actual teacher said that.
Yeah,
like that's
yeah.
Come on.
And I'm kind of like,
that's
I'm not the only one that's struggling with the fact that these words sound exactly the same but are spelled different. You know, I get that they have different meanings.
wow,
but yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
so it was really interesting. Mr. Hand was sort of the role model for what teaching looked like in the 80s to me. I felt like a lot of people could experience having that type of teacher. So I made a note of it, and I was just like, righteous fucker.
Although I do speaking of Mr. Hand, but he doesn't even react when he says that. You know, like there's several times when he's doing his power play and he gets challenged by Spicoli, he doesn't go off the handle and like match that level, which he could have. He could have tried to, I don't know, raise the stakes and done something. I mean, he sends him to the principal. But this is one of those the disturbing things about rewatching these movies is how reasonable the terrible old people seem to me now.
Right.
And Mr. Hand was definitely one of those ones I was like, well, he kind of had a point, and he wasn't really, I mean, he could have been cooler about it, but he wasn't all that bad, and he really did want them to learn. And
wow, when you're sympathizing with Mr. Hand, we have lost you.
I also was he went to his house. He shows up at Spicoli's house to
at
teach,
the end of the movie,
which is both a mix of like, wow, what a dedicated teacher, and like, wait, that's wildly over the line of what you're allowed to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So and on that scene, when he comes to his house, right before that is when Spicoli is on the phone with his friend. He hits himself in the head with his shoe and says, "That's my skull," as an example of how high he is. Yeah. And I was trying to remember, I think they said, "How long has it been since you took it?" And he said, "What is it? Oh, if you take it every day for a month, you'll get brain damage." And I'm like, were they talking about a different drug? Because I think it was more than just smoking pot at that stage. Maybe I was reading.
I don't know. Yeah, I that whole like, that's my skull shoe thing. That was one of those references that I saw all over through growing up over time. I mean, like in like one of my favorite series, the guy did it, and I was kind of like, oh, I think that's a Spicoli reference, because I still, you know, like I said, I never really seen it all the way through. But yeah, that was just really interesting. The whole teaching, that dynamic between him and the teacher. And so there were a couple things that were words that came up, like, you know, the fags word. You heard that all in every 80s movie. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, they had to throw that in there. That's part of the formula, even though this movie is slightly different. There was a big reference to big hair pussy. I wrote that down. I don't know what that meant. Do you guys remember that?
Wait, when was that?
I think that may have been something in your home life, because I don't remember that from the movie.
What? What part is that?
Wait, what?
Down. It says big hair pussy. I gotta go back. Now I gotta go back and watch the whole damn movie to figure out where that came from.
I think you might have watched the porn parody of this movie, like Fag Times at Ridgemont Hotel or something. Or...
If we jump forward, this is about the time in the movie where Brad has lost his job. He gets dumped by the girl. You know, like his life, he's working at the equivalent of the fish and chips place.
Oh man.
Speaking of pirates,
poor
guy has to wear the
Right, so he's working at like a fish and chip stand, dressed like a pirate for his job, and he's asked to go and deliver a bunch of fish meals to IBM. And he tries to take off his costume. The boss says, "What are you doing? Have pride. You got to wear his, you know, stinky, oily, fryer smelling outfit in the car."
Fried fish all up in his car.
So and he's in his cool ass car, feeling cool like he always does. Looks over and sees a cute blonde in the car next to him, and they start smiling back and forth. before he realizes that she's smiling because he's wearing the pirate hat. And
But not just any woman.
Oh, who is it?
Do you know who was that driving the car?
No, who was it?
That's Nancy Wilson from Heart, who married Cameron Crowe, or was his was married to Cameron Crowe later.
Wow. Okay.
Deep cut. Wow.
Yeah.
Look at you, Jim, going
I did some
in
research.
There.
I did some research. I didn't recognize her. I'm not that big of a Heart
I'm guessing
fan.
the internet helped you with that one.
I mean, I'll mess with some Barracuda, but I don't know a lot. I mean,
okay, so he's humiliated, and this is where the dark side of our golden boy starts to really go, wait a minute, this is the second time he gets enraged and throws his uniform out the window. And we kind of skipped over, he lost his last job because he got enraged and yelled and threatened a customer. So this golden boy, he's unhireable. I mean, no one wants this guy to work for him. It's not like he's a victim of circumstance. He's now caused either property damage or potential lawsuits to multiple employers.
Let's go back to the dude who was like, I was told that if I was unsatisfied, I could get my money back.
Yeah, he wants a refund.
You have to refund me.
He's like one bite left of his hamburger or whatever it was. Yeah.
Oh, and that was cracking me up. And I was like, you know what? There are still people like that today, dude. Watch Instagram. They're all over the place.
Yeah, the reason why it's tough to hire people to wait tables is because they're sick of dealing with that shit.
Exactly. Exactly. So
there was some great just some 80s references that I don't want to pass up. Obviously the beginning, but I love that the teacher, the mellow science teacher, I think, says, I just switched to Senka. And it's so decaf thing, he's all crazy. It's a famous guy, he's in a lot of movies, just being like mellow.
So fun fact, I drink decaf. I quit caffeine in my 40s because I
in the future.
Yeah, nice. How do you know?
So and I remember when I came off of it, and it was really hard because you're feeling like crap and your brain is like letting go of all the the caffeine receptors and yada yada. And I remember the guy that I was with at the time was like, oh man, I'm so glad you got off caffeine because you were mean.
On caffeine?
Yeah, I guess I was just like this.
I think it's the other way around.
When I drink a cup of coffee. I don't know.
Wow.
But yeah, so I recently, every once in a while, I'll have some caffeine. I was actually on it. I think that's also what kind of helped me drop some weight. And then I recently came back off of it. So as a whole, I am a decaf coffee drinker. So
wow. Presumably Senka.
Exactly.
Super shitty instant decaffeinated coffee.
Yeah, I just wanted to taste like brown water.
Right.
Is this dark roast? It's brown.
It's brown. Yeah.
Brown.
I just thought that was so, like, Senka was like Tang or something. Like it was futuristic decaf crystallized coffee.
Freeze dried. Yeah, it was freeze dried.
Yeah.
That's the same teacher that in his science class they have a live monkey.
Dude. Okay.
I'm like,
I want to talk about this public school. Yeah. So this public school is the most well-funded shitty school in the planet. So they have monkeys in the science class, like actual monkeys to do experiments with. And then they go to a morgue to work with cadavers. What school? That's graduate level.
I like to see the permission slip for that.
Right. We're gonna expose your kid to decaying bodies.
Oh my
monkeys.
God, that is an impressive class.
Yeah,
that's for a high school science class.
Yeah, that science class was just super funny.
Well, they've also got an impressive sports program because Forrest Whitaker is their paid football star.
Yeah, that's right. So I love the football scenes. I love Forrest Whitaker in this. But did you catch the Sean Penn, Spicoli and
Forrest Whitaker's
brother destroy the car,
right?
And then they make it appear that their rival school, which is Lincoln, had done the damage, and so of course he goes out and just destroys Lincoln. in their big rivalry game. But did you see the button he's wearing?
Kill Lincoln.
Assassinate Lincoln.
Lincoln. Yeah,
I wrote that down. I'm like, that is genius. That is the greatest ASB, coup ever. Assassinate Lincoln. Genius.
Like normally, not. It's too far, but that's so.
It
good.
was crazy. It was crazy.
So good.
So
I love that.
Another thing on say so in the scene when they're driving the brother's car, and did you notice that he drives between two cars, hits one of them, and then the brother calmly says, "Hey man, don't mess up my brother's car." I'm like, dude, he just hit a car. Like, I think they edited this in the wrong order.
I was like, dude, this is crazy. I just was laughing at that scene. I just kept shaking my head. Like, but while that was happening, the young girl, I can't even remember her name. What was her name? The one who was
Jennifer Jason Leigh, is that her name?
Jennifer Jason Leigh, but I don't know. I can't remember her character's name. So this is at the same time where she was macking down the mall guy's friend, right? Like this is where Damone.
She's
by the way,
Stacey Hamilton.
Why did he sound like he was from New York again? It's like California. He had like a New York accent. I'm like, I don't get it.
He also seemed like a grown man too.
Exactly. And like, so that she, they goes over to her house and they go into the pool room. And it was really shocking to me how forward she was. Oh no, actually, I'm sorry, I got it out of order. This is when she went out on the date with the mall kid, right? The guy who works at the movie theater. I'm sorry, I got it out of order.
Mark Ratner. She went out on a date with him and comes back to her house and she changes her clothes. They go into his room and she is literally
awesome.
And it's super funny because I was like, John will like her.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes.
I like forward girls.
Ask for it. Yes.
I don't do well with mixed signals. I need things on a platter for me, my thick brain to understand what's happening.
It was so hard for me to watch because I was just like, wow, this girl who's only 15 is like literally throwing herself at this high school kid who is probably around the same age as her, and I'm like, it was so gross for me. It was like, yuck.
There was a scene in there I thought was it's so realistic. It was making me so uncomfortable because I just could totally relate to it, which was they start to look at her photo albums.
Yeah.
And there was something about that scene that felt so awkward and real. Like, I'm sure I have been in that situation, looking at photo albums, like, and nothing about that is foreplay like, and yet for some reason that was it was, I thought it was like, that's again, a totally unnecessary scene, but super realistic and kind of blew me away.
I thought it was great. I mean, I've been there. I've been there where you have gotten to the situation where you're alone in a room on the bed with a woman that there's interest, and then someone needs to make a move. And without a Jennifer Jason Leigh superhero to do it, you just sit there on the bed and go, let's look at a photo album. Oh, let's look at these stars, the glow in the dark stars on the
stars in the ceiling.
You're lying next to each other. And it's still, and in your mind, you're spinning going, well, what if she doesn't want me to kiss her? What if I kiss her and she says no? Then I'm going to be a jerk. I don't want to think I'm like Damone. No, I'm cool. I'm a nice guy, and
right.
And then the sun starts coming up. You go, I guess I got to go home.
Well, I mean, it was funny. I thought it was really interesting that they took the take that they did, that the kid just left. He was like, hey, it's getting late. I got to get my sister's car back. And because he was clearly uncomfortable.
He freaked out.
Yeah. And he freaked out, which I think was great because I think in reality, most people would be freaking out, both the girl and the guy would be like, shit, what's next? And the fact that he just was like, okay, I gotta go. I was like, yes, good.
That's good. He was shy and it was too fast. And like, I thought that was good. And it made it that's why it wasn't Porky's or something. It wasn't
throwing herself on you. Okay.
Right.
Well, so there's Damone, who is initially I remember, and I still had so much icky feelings, especially the scene when Ratner and Jennifer Jason Leigh are having dinner at the strudel or schnitzel place, and and he forgets his wallet, and so Damone comes in to bring his wallet, and he does it in just such an asshole way, you know. He tries to make him look stupid, and he acts super cool. He eats off the plate, and I mean that was probably the most uncomfortable scene for me, watching just him disempower and humiliate the nice guy, you know.
Right. And I don't understand, because I thought he was sort of his supportive friend up until then, but then he was that was a total dick move.
Yeah,
and that sets the route for this kind of Breaking Bad, like one bad decision after another, where where Damone just gets farther and farther into villain, you know, where then, because he is so cool in that scenario, then Jennifer Jason Leigh starts hitting on him, propositions him, as I think Jim and I would both agree, that is not a skill we had developed in high school, of the ability to say, no, thank you. I would not like to get naked with you right now. Like, so he ends up, you know, being a dick about it, being bad at it. And he's, of course, so they end up having sex in the pool room, and he comes very quickly, does not know what the fuck he's doing, in a state which I didn't quite grok this until I watched it. So he's humiliated, you know. He has lasted for 2 seconds. He's done a poor job. He freaks out. He also now all the guilt of making the bad decision of like, oh my God, I betrayed my friend. I've now, you know, and then so he freaks out, runs away, goes into retreat, and doesn't talk to her. So now he's, you know, massive asshole villain that, you know, that, and it gets worse.
Yes.
Yeah, right. I just want to stop for a second though. Did you just say I didn't grok this from the book, The Martian?
It's not The Martian. It's a Stranger in a Strange Land.
Stranger in a Strange Land. I was like, he just said grok.
That's right. I'm glad that you grokked what I was saying.
I did. I was like, wait. I know that.
Man, you fabric store guys are just you never grow out of that.
It's such beings. So yes, so it does get worse, which is really interesting that we're watching this right now, given everything that's going on in our world regarding, you know, in the United States regarding, you know, the woman's right to choose. It was very interesting thing. And then for me, it was another one of those things that kind of hit really close to home, because both of my sisters got pregnant quite young, at 15 and 16. And so it was just kind of like, oh, and I think it was because they you know, had like young pregnancy experiences, that I was like also a little afraid of sex after like my very first time. I was just like, no, I don't want to have to make a choice, you know, about babies right now. That's just too much for me. And so, yeah, it was just so crazy, like her having to tell him, and then him not believing that he could be the only one, and her having to say, yes, you're the only person I've been with. It was so hard to watch. I was like, God, that sucks, you know.
Well, he's clearly like, he's not emotionally equipped for any of this, you know, like, not to defend him, but so he already is in a place where he has run away from all this responsibility of just the emotional responsibility of having sex with someone, and then presented with and you got me, you know, we got pregnant, and he just cannot accept responsibility, acts in such a jerk way. But then that night you see him doing everything he can to try to get the money.
He's trying.
You owe me money. And he can't do it.
And he can't figure it out. And then she's got to do it all on her own, you know, and with a little bit of help from her brother, who clearly understands what has gone down. That whole thing was just a little.
It was cool for that part. He lets her have that and helps her.
Yeah.
In case really anybody is watching this and wondering, well, what should Damone have done? He should have called and said, I can't come up with the money. There's a lot of this movie that would have been, you know, just like fessing up and saying, if more people could be like Spicoli and said, I don't know what to do. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Now I do have a question. And once again, because I watched this last Saturday and it's not quite as fresh in my mind, I have a question here that I was going to ask you, and I was going to ask the both of you. And it was, have you both ever been caught masturbating by your parents? I think there was a masturbation scene in there somewhere, and somebody's parents walked in.
Well, first off, the greatest scene in cinematic history is what happens.
Hallelujah.
the most rewatched, the most worn out VHS tapes in the history of mankind belong to Phoebe Cates exiting the pool. I can't believe we haven't talked more about
that's
this yet.
right. And
Should we start over? Start with that. Yeah.
That's right. The fact
He's
that
in
you're
the
referring to this
bathroom.
as if it was not the sole reason and focus of this movie shows how different we are, Shonda.
Exactly.
Because I could barely breathe until that scene happened, because that's all I could think about until then. It was so good of a scene. Then it's still a great scene. Phoebe Cates slow motion exiting the pool, taking off her top. It's just at a time in 1982, this is that was a pretty beautiful glimpse into female body that not a lot of us had seen. So,
and she's forward, says,
but then of course ruined by the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So funny.
It's
like
abruptly destroyed by her walking in on him.
The great line, often repeated, doesn't anybody ever fucking knock anymore? To which the response is, I think that's on you, bro. You got to have a lockable door before you whip it out when there's guests over. That's personal responsibility.
Okay, but have you ever been caught masturbating? Answer the question.
Answer the question, Claire. Sean, it's a funny thing about the way movies are made. No, certainly not in any situation like that.
Mm-hmm.
No.
If I had been, I think that the parent that pretended they did not, so they saved me the save face for me. So
Okay.
I do not have an embarrassment story like that. No. But I did think that this was a significant thing in this movie, that it even acknowledged it. I remember when Matt Basham in 7th grade, he mentioned in passing about masturbating, and I was like, I thought this was he was Hercules or Achilles. This was heroic that he had admitted to masturbating. I was like, oh my God.
You're allowed to say that?
You have to be to admit. I mean, I think we all do it, but you can't say that you do it. And he just was so badass.
At least not then. You couldn't say that you do it. I think it's so much more acceptable that people are aware that
I think so.
It's like, but back in the 80s when we were in high school, no one talked about the fact that
Nicolas Cage would put a sign on your back saying, I am a fag, which he did in this movie earlier in the movie.
Nice.
Oh, it's so funny.
Wait, who did he put the sign on?
It was during the beginning as a school montage. He does it. It's a random as people going through the school. Yeah.
So crazy.
There was great music in this movie. By the way.
No, the soundtrack was actually really fun. It took me right back to that time in my life where, like I said, everybody cool was working at Sam Goody and I was cutting fabric for old ladies.
Yeah. But that makes for a great fantasy sequence. Slow motion, nerdy dude walks in, takes a hit off his inhaler, adjusts his glasses.
I'm hiding under bolts of fabric.
Or they're just, the fabric is like blowing in the wind.
Yeah. I need 3 feet of navy blue.
Yards.
3 yards.
Sold in yards.
Well, maybe he's making a Speedo, all part of the fantasy. I'm just saying. The music was great, and another thing that apparently Vans said that this movie single-handedly thrust them into the stratosphere. That no one wore Vans other than just surfer dudes and skaters, and then Vans is so central to Spicoli's character and the way the movie's promoted.
I think they're still very relevant to the surf culture. I mean, I have a ton of friends, down in San Diego, and that when I see them at parties or see them at events, and they're still wearing those same checkerboard, Vans. And I'm just kind of like, I have a couple girlfriends up in Canada. That's what they wear. And I don't know.
Super popular. Yeah.
They're still super relevant today, in terms of that sort of laid back, lifestyle.
Do you remember, Jim, going to the Vans factory outlet and custom ordering Vans?
Absolutely.
Do you remember what you got?
I remember getting red checkerboard on the top and black checkerboard in the back, I think. I definitely was more red and black checkerboard. I don't think I was ever bold enough to go blue as well.
Yeah, I see. That makes me feel good because I was feeling like I remember it being a really bold act that I got blue and black checkers and
Yeah.
then blue in the front and black in the back with blue and black checkers in the middles. And I was like,
Yeah.
I think I can pull this off.
Yeah. It was I remember thinking that was a step too far for me. But before we wrap up, I also wanted can you name the three best actor Oscar winners in this movie? Three.
Sean Penn, uh, Forrest
Eric
Whitaker,
Eric Stoltz.
Not Eric Stoltz.
not Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage got a Best Actor. Oh, well, there you go.
For Leaving Las Vegas.
Ah,
Oh,
But that's
okay.
crazy. This silly movie that was like being judged. I mean, apparently had an X rating because they showed Damone's penis,
Mhm.
and they
Oh,
had
really?
to cut it, so they got an R rating. This movie that was they weren't going to release it because it was a like teen pornography, and people are upset about
Yeah,
it. And it's three Best Actor winners.
Yeah,
and other nominations.
so one of the things that I wrote when we got to the bottom, I was kind of disappointed. There were no public conflicts of resolution, which was like one of the first ones where we didn't see that, right? We didn't see this like big corny ass scene at the end where they're trying to make
Right.
like trying to come to an end of a really stupid no plot movie. I will say that I still don't think that there was much of a plot. I still think that we were just watching the day in the life or the day of, or a time in a period in time of some people that are in high school. So I wouldn't say that there was necessarily like a plot, if you will.
Mhm.
And I did write that the soundtrack was awesome.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
radical.
so radical.
As far as wrapping up though, I loved the closing cards where they gave the kind of like Animal House where they say this is what happened to this character, this is how this happened to this
totally.
character. Like Spicoli saves Brooke Shields from drowning, blows the reward money, hiring Van Halen to play his birthday party.
Which is maybe the most
fuck
80s
yes.
sentence of all time.
Yes, dude, yes.
Yeah. So good.
Oh man. I mean, all in all, it was a pretty fun movie. I'm glad that I watched it at this point in my life as opposed to when I was a kid, because once again, I felt like there was a lot of it that wasn't that relevant to me in terms of how I grew up. But a fun movie, definitely worth watching, if you are interested in that sort of pop culture back then.
You want to give it a rating between 1 and 100?
Yeah, I'll give it a 78.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw 89 because I was class of 89 at UC High, which is rivals with Claremont, which would have been Ridgemont. And one of the main reasons why I would recommend it, as for young people, is the way it talks about sexuality and the way that it shows the ignorance. Like there's a scene when Jennifer Jason Leigh asks Phoebe Cates, like, "Hey, like I don't know, I'm not good at sex," or something like that, and Phoebe Cates is like, "What is there to be good at? You either do it or you don't." And it's like, oh. Yeah, that's not the advice you want from your sexual advisor.
Or the blowjob scene with the carrots at the
Yes.
table, right? And the dudes are watching from the other table across, and you're like, no, dude, first of all, that's terrible technique.
And by the way,
don't do that.
If a dude's penis looks like that, you should probably just walk away, because that's
interesting.
That's not right.
Side fact: in the book, they practice on a banana.
Oh.
And her teeth actually do rake some pieces of the banana away, and the guys in the table next to her all cringe when that happens.
Did you read the book?
I did read the book. Yeah.
Oh.
I still remember it. Holy moly.
Wow.
So and even like, and the way it shows that, the sex can be not enjoyable, the pregnancy reality,
right,
not sugarcoating the experience of terminating a pregnancy,
right.
these are concepts that I don't think get a lot of play in movies that a kid is going to watch. So I think that there's a real benefit, and then it's interspersed with just this comedic fun of Spicoli. I'm gonna 89. I'm gonna go push it to 94.
Wow.
Oh. Wow, you talked yourself into
Say what
points.
now?
Yeah.
I agree with you, John. I think once again, like, well, go ahead, Jim. You do your rating, and then we'll finish up.
I just want to also just point out how good my quick math was on that. Just I very quickly realized how many points up that was. I didn't even use a calculator. So to the teachers that doubted me, like Mr. Campiglia, F you.
Yeah.
I think this movie's fantastic. I think, although it definitely all of my fears of growing up in a feminist household.
F you, Mr. Campiglia. I'm holding.
That's our new podcast. We're gonna have a whole new podcast. But all my fears, growing up in a feminist household and being very concerned about a woman's experience during sex, this definitely shined a light on all of those terrible things that could happen, and so this definitely freaked me out. But I think that's what makes this movie such a good one, and the fact that it's this launching pad for so many amazing actors and actresses that are in this, it just makes it so much fun to rewatch. Just seeing, Anthony Edwards has no part in it. Eric Stoltz has like no part. I mean, these just guys have these little bit parts that are just massive stars. But I think it's a great timepiece. It's with all the references and the music. So I'm gonna give it a 90. I think it's definitely good to watch, and I think it holds up. And it's not so campy and silly that it's glorifying something. But it's also not so dark and disturbing that it's too much. It's just a great movie, and Spicoli kills it. So
nice.
Oh,
I know that,
so
dude.
Well, this was totally righteous to do this with you guys. Super fun to see your faces again and laugh with you. And if you are listening and have a movie suggestion for us, let us know. Otherwise, we will see you soon. Thanks, guys.
All right,
bye, guys.
Bye. Love
Bye.
you.
Oh man, that was so fun. I honestly, my jaw, we were literally 5 minutes in and I was like, dude, my jaw hurts. That's so crazy.